The rain began without warning, the kind that crashes from the sky as if the clouds had been holding their breath too long. In Kijiji, the small village hugged between red dust roads and endless cassava fields, rain was not an inconvenience. It was a visitor, sometimes gentle, sometimes cruel, but always powerful. When it came, life bent itself around it. Amani felt the first cold drops on her shoulders as she stood outside her mother's mud-walled house, staring at the cracked path that led nowhere and everywhere at once. The world had beaten her down early. At 19, her hands were already calloused from washing other people's clothes, her feet permanently stained from dust and hardship. Her father had died when she was 12, crushed under collapsing timber at a construction site in the city. Her mother had grown quiet after that, like a radio that still made sound but had lost the music. That afternoon, Amani had been turned away from another job. "We don't need dancers," the woman at the roadside bar had said, not even looking at her properly. "We need girls who bring customers." Amani understood what that meant. She walked away with her head held high but her heart folded inward. When the rain fell, people rushed for cover. Vendors grabbed their vegetables, drivers honked in chaos, children screamed and laughed as they ran. But Amani stayed. She lifted her face to the sky. The rain soaked her faded yellow dress in seconds. Cold water ran down her spine, into her eyes, her mouth. And then something inside her finally broke, but not in pain. In release. She stepped into the muddy road and began to dance. Not for anyone. Not for money. Not for survival. She danced because for the first time in weeks, she felt empty enough to feel free. Her feet slapped against the wet earth, barefoot and fearless. She spun, arms stretched wide as rain wrapped around her like a second skin. The dust turned to smooth brown clay beneath her steps. Her body moved as if it remembered something ancient, rhythms passed down through bones and blood long before villages had names. The way her hips rolled, the sharp snap of her shoulders, the trembling grace of her hands, it was not something she had learned from a screen. It was something she had inherited. Across the road, inside a rusted broken-down taxi parked beneath a mango tree, an old man sat watching. His name was Babu Kofi. Once, long ago, he had been a music producer in the city. He had worked with real artists, real studios, real promises. Then contracts failed, friends betrayed him, and time took everything else. Now he collected scrap, repaired radios, and slept inside his dead taxi. But his eyes still knew music when they saw it. When Amani began to dance, something in Babu's chest loosened for the first time in years. Without thinking, he reached for his old phone. Its screen was cracked, the battery barely alive. He pressed record. He did not call out to her. He did not interrupt the moment. He simply let her be. People gathered under roofs and shop shades, whispering and laughing as they watched the strange girl dancing alone in the rain. "She is mad," someone said. "She is beautiful," another answered. Amani danced until her lungs burned and her legs shook. When she stopped, her breath came in laughter and tears mixed together. Only then did she notice the silence around her, the eyes watching. Shame rushed in like cold water all over again. She turned and ran home. That night, their house flooded. They lost half their clothes, 2 mattresses, and most of their stored maize. Amani and her mother spent hours bailing out water with broken buckets. In the dark, with her muscles aching, Amani whispered, "Mother, I'm tired of being invisible." Her mother said nothing. 3 days later, the video appeared on the internet. Babu Kofi had no followers, no platform, no fame. He uploaded it anyway, almost as if he were throwing a bottle into the ocean. The caption was simple. "She dances like the rain remembers her." At first, nothing happened. Then someone shared it. Then a musician from the city reposted it. Then a dance page in Lagos picked it up. Within a week, the world had seen Amani. Phones began to ring in Kijiji like never before. Journalists arrived in dusty cars. Bloggers knocked on doors. Young men from the village who had never noticed her before suddenly claimed they had grown up with her. Amani did not even know she was famous until a stranger came running to her mother's washing stall at the river. "Your daughter is on the internet," the woman shouted. "She is everywhere." They borrowed a phone to watch the video. Amani saw herself as the world had seen her, wild, soaked, powerful, untamed. She covered her mouth as tears slid down her face. For the first time in her life, people were not looking at her with pity or hunger. They were looking at her with awe. Opportunities came like storms. A dance academy in the city offered her training. A fashion brand wanted her for a commercial. A music producer offered to make her a video star. All within days. Babu Kofi remained silent in his taxi, watching the world move without him. He never told anyone he had recorded the video. He did not ask for credit. He did not ask for money. He only watched the girl rise. Amani's mother was afraid. "The city eats children," she warned. But Amani's eyes burned with hope. "I've already been eaten here," she replied softly. "At least let me choose where I bleed." They left for the city with one bag. The city was loud, fast, beautiful, and cruel. Neon lights blinded her rural eyes. Cars moved like angry rivers. People did not greet each other. Everyone was chasing something. At the academy, Amani trained until her bones screamed. Her feet bled inside borrowed shoes. Teachers praised her talent but mocked her lack of education. Other girls smiled in her face and whispered behind her back. She was too raw, too rural, too unpolished, too dangerous. Still, the crowds loved her. Her first performance on a public city stage brought thunderous applause. Her second brought standing ovations. By the third, brand managers were fighting over her name. Money came suddenly, but so did jealousy. One of the Academy's star dancers, Zuri, saw Amani not as inspiration but as invasion. Zuri had connections, lovers in high places, and a smile sharp as glass. She pretended to befriend Amani, helped her with makeup, taught her stage rules, whispered gossip into her ears. Then she began to poison the room. "She slept with someone," Zuri hinted. "She is arrogant," Zuri sighed. "She thinks she is better than us," Zuri smiled. Amani felt the air change around her. People became colder. Invitations quietly stopped arriving. One major contract vanished overnight. She did not understand why. Then the false video appeared. Edited, stitched, twisted. It showed Amani in a compromising moment that had never happened. The city devoured it with hunger. Sponsors pulled back. The Academy suspended her until investigations were complete. In 1 week, she went from rising star to public disgrace. She sat alone in a cheap rented room, staring at her phone as hate poured in. Village star turns fake. "We knew she was dirty. Send her back to the mud." Her mother called, crying. Amani did not go home. Weight sank into her chest. The same rain that had lifted her once now poured endlessly inside her bones. That night, alone in the city, she stood at the edge of a tall building and looked down at the glowing traffic far below. For the first time in her life, she was not afraid of falling. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. "Don't jump," a tired old voice said. She froze. "Who is this?" "I am the man who filmed you." Her breath caught. Babu Kofi stepped out of the shadows of his forgotten life. He told her everything, how he had recorded her, how he had never expected the world to answer, how he had been watching her from afar. He also told her something else. "I also recorded the real truth." He had been fixing a radio outside the Academy weeks earlier. His phone had accidentally captured Zuri paying a tech boy to edit the fake scandal video. "I kept it because my heart told me one day you would need it." Amani shook as she listened. "Why help me?" "Because once," the old man whispered, "someone destroyed my life with lies. And no one saved me." For the first time since the scandal broke, hope breathed again. But revenge in the city is never simple. And fame never returns the same way it arrives. The old man's voice stayed in Amani's ears long after the call ended. The traffic below still moved like burning rivers, horns crying into the darkness, lives rushing without knowing how close hers had come to slipping out of the world. She backed away from the edge with shaking legs and collapsed onto the rooftop floor. That night, she did not sleep. Her heart beat like a drum of war. By dawn, Babu Kofi arrived at her door with slow steps and tired eyes. The city sun revealed how deeply time had carved into his face. He held the phone like it was fragile glass. They watched the recording together, Zuri's voice clear, sharp, careless with cruelty. Money changing hands. Laughter. The casual murder of a reputation. Amani cried without sound. "So what now?" she whispered. "Now," Babu said, "we return your name." They approached journalists first. Some turned them away. Some laughed. Some asked for money. Lies travel faster than truth in the city. Truth must push through crowds with bleeding hands. Finally, a young reporter with hungry eyes listened without mocking. When the evidence dropped online, it spread like wildfire. The city shifted its weight. Headlines reversed themselves. Comment sections twisted direction. Influencers who had cursed Amani now demanded apologies. Zuri disappeared. The academy called immediately. Apologies came wrapped in excuses. Sponsors cautiously returned. But something inside Amani had changed forever. Trust did not come back with the contracts. She returned to the training hall with quiet strength, not fire. Her movements grew deeper, heavier. Every step now carried memory. Every spin carried pain. The audience could feel it. The city began to call her something new. The Storm Dancer. Opportunities widened across borders. A music star from South Africa invited her to tour. A European label requested a collaboration. Her face appeared on screens she had never imagined. But fame is loud, and loneliness grows silently. Back in the academy, girls smiled at her again, but now the smiles were soaked in fear. They bowed with respect but carried resentment in their chests. Zuri never returned. Rumor said she fled to another country, her name ruined beyond repair. Revenge had arrived, but it tasted bitter instead of sweet. Amani sent money home every month. Her mother repaired the flood-damaged house. Neighbors who once whispered now greeted with forced pride. But distance grew between mother and daughter like a slow river widening. Phone calls became shorter. "When will you visit?" her mother asked. "When the road becomes quiet," Amani answered. The road never became quiet. In the city, love found her unexpectedly in the form of Malik, a sound engineer with gentle hands and tired dreams. He treated her like a woman, not a trophy. He cooked for her when rehearsals broke her body. He defended her against mockery when fans crossed boundaries. With him, she felt normal for the first time since Rain first made her famous. But love near fame ages quickly. As her star climbed higher, Malik remained where he was. Attention shifted toward her like a greedy sun. Producers whispered that love distracted greatness. Invitations arrived for her alone. Malik stood in many rooms where people pretended he did not exist. In her absence, doubt moved into his heart. "Everyone wants something from you," he once said quietly. "Even me now I fear." She kissed his worries away with promises. But time kept stealing hours from their future. Meanwhile, Babu Kofi watched everything from a distance. Amani tried to shower him with money, but he refused. "I did not save you to eat from you," he said simply. She insisted anyway. A small room. Better medicine. Warm meals. Their bond remained strange but sacred, like father and daughter stitched by fate. Then greed arrived wearing family clothes. Amani's uncle appeared from nowhere with smiles soaked in interest. He demanded shares, demanded recognition, demanded compensation for raising her blood. When she refused, curses followed. Lawsuit threats followed. Anonymous attacks online resumed, this time painted as family truth. The village divided. Some believed her. Some sold her to gossip for free. Her mother fell ill under the stress. Amani rushed home at last. The village greeted her with half-hearted songs and hidden knives. Pride mixed with envy like sand in water. She found her mother thin, breathing shallow, eyes full of unshed worry. "You shine too far from me," her mother whispered. Amani held her hand and wept. That night, the rain returned. And once again, barefoot, she stepped into the village mud and danced without cameras, without internet, without the world. Only her mother watched. Only the stars remembered. But the city did not sleep while she healed. Malik gave in to temptation during her absence. One mistake born from jealousy and loneliness turned into photographs, into whispers, into betrayal exposed to the light. When Amani returned, the truth shattered what distance had already cracked. He begged. He cried. He blamed the weight of her fame. She walked away without a word. Loss hardened her. Work consumed her again. Tours. Films. Interviews. She crossed oceans without touching peace. Then the offer arrived that would test everything. A global performance. Billions watching. The climax of her career so far. But Zuri's shadow moved again. Someone was pulling strings behind the stage. Contracts shifted. Payments delayed. Hidden names appeared in documents. The same old poison returned through new hands. And at the center of it all, unknown to the world, stood the girl who once danced alone in the rain, now surrounded by enemies who smiled with perfect teeth. The world waited for her without knowing it was about to try to destroy her again. The global performance was announced everywhere at once, flashing across screens in cities she had never visited, in languages she could not pronounce. It was the kind of stage that turned stars into legends or erased them forever. Amani was told it would be her rebirth, her coronation beyond borders, a declaration that the barefoot village girl now belonged to the world. She trained like someone trying to outrun death. Her body no longer felt pain in parts, it simply obeyed. Her muscles burned through rehearsals that stretched past midnight. Sleep came in fragments. Food tasted like obligation. Fame had become a job, and survival had become duty. The joy that once lived so easily in her movements remained visible only to the audience. Behind the curtain of her ribs, exhaustion planted roots. Babu Kofi warned her quietly. Big light attracts big shadows. She smiled and pretended she did not hear fear in his voice. Contracts were rewritten again and again. Sponsors changed at the last moment. The management team that once felt solid began shifting like wet sand. Meetings were cancelled. Calls went unanswered. Someone, somewhere, was pulling invisible threads. Babu tried to investigate, but doors closed as fast as they opened. Then the first warning came in the form of a leaked document. An accusation of breach of contract. A misfiled signature. A hidden clause she had never known existed. The internet did not wait for explanations. Judgment lived faster than facts. Her name began to tilt sideways again in the digital wind. She felt it before she understood it. The cold. The distance. The quiet abandonment that always arrived moments before disasters. One evening, as she left rehearsal, she saw a familiar silhouette leaning against a black car across the street. For a moment, the city froze around her. The woman stepped into the light with a smile that had not aged. Zuri. The world tilted. Zuri looked softer now, her sharp edges wrapped in designer calm. But her eyes were the same, underground dark, patient with poison. "Congratulations," Zuri said. "You climbed very high." Amani's body stiffened. "You should not be here." "I was invited," Zuri replied lightly. "Just like you." Amani laughed without humor. "You ran when the truth came." "And you believed truth ends wars," Zuri said. "It only starts better ones." They stood between traffic and neon and ghosts of past hatred. Zuri leaned closer. "This time, I will not simply take your reputation. I will take your future." Amani walked away without responding, but fear walked with her all the way home. That night, Babu revealed what he had long hidden. He had not always been a forgotten taxi man. Decades ago, he had owned a major recording studio. He had discovered talents that now owned the world. But one betrayal had buried him alive. A powerful business partner had framed him, stolen everything, locked him out of the industry. Zuri was connected to that same bloodline of corruption. They do not forgive survivors, Babu said. They absorb or erase. Amani listened as pieces of the darkness arranged themselves into a shape she finally understood. Her rise had disturbed an old empire that never liked unscripted miracles. They had tested her with scandal once. It had failed. Now they were coming with contracts, courts, finance, and controlled chaos. The global performance approached like a storm that refused to turn aside. Then Malik returned. He stood at the edge of her rehearsal hall one afternoon, thinner, regret written into his bones. When their eyes met, years folded into seconds. She wanted to scream at him. She wanted to collapse into his chest. She wanted to erase him like a wound that kept reopening. "I made a mistake," he said. "You made a choice," she answered. "I lost myself watching you fly without me." "You betrayed me watching yourself fall," she replied. He still loved her. He always would. But love after betrayal becomes a foreign language spoken with familiar lips. They parted again without reconciliation. 2 days before the performance, the trap closed. Accounts were frozen under investigation. The contract was contested. The organizing committee announced that Amani might be removed from the lineup pending inquiry. Rumors spread that she was facing an international lawsuit. Sponsors panicked. Managers advised silence. The world leaned forward, hungry again. That night, Amani broke. She returned to her hotel room, tore off her performance costume with trembling hands, and slid to the floor. All the rage she had swallowed for years erupted through her in silent waves. She did not cry like a girl. She cried like a storm breaking dam walls. Babu sat with her without words. "What if they win?" she whispered. "They already lost the day you danced alone without permission," he answered. The morning of the performance arrived wrapped in tension so thick it could choke light. Outside the venue, thousands gathered. Screens displayed countdowns. Her face hovered above the city in towering digital towers. The world expected drama. Behind the stage, news arrived that her exit visa had been temporarily revoked under legal pressure. Someone had signed a motion using stolen authority. Zuri's systems worked perfectly. Amani stood in full costume with shackles made of paper law tightening around her name. For a moment, she stood still as if considering surrender. Then she closed her eyes. And she remembered rain. She remembered dust turning into mud beneath her bare feet. She remembered being invisible. She remembered hunger, rejection, and the joy of movement when nothing else could buy her joy. She remembered her mother's hands. She remembered Malik's laughter before jealousy broke his voice. She remembered Babu watching her quietly like a guardian no one hired. She stepped forward before permission could be denied. A commotion exploded backstage as legal agents rushed forward. But the moment she hit the stage, the crowd swallowed everything else. Music erupted. Amani danced like someone whose life hung from every beat. She danced betrayal into the floor. She danced love into the air. She danced revenge into the silence between notes. The performance went beyond discipline. It crossed into possession. The world watched something untrainable move through a body trained to seem uncontainable. Language collapsed into rhythm. The crowd rose before being told to rise. Behind the screen, Zuri watched with compressed fury. Then the live feed cut. Sudden blackout. A gasp rippled across the audience like tearing cloth. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Then the screen returned. But not with music. With documents. With recordings. With the original payment exchange between Zuri and the tech editor. With bank trails. With the leaked contracts exposing the sabotage. Babu Kofi had released everything at the height of the world's attention. The stage transformed into a courtroom of light. Amani stood frozen as the truth exploded outward faster than the lie ever had. Zuri screamed from backstage. Security moved in. The audience roared. Justice arrived wearing spectacle. Zuri was arrested that night. But victory never arrives without cost. The legal storm that followed swallowed months of Amani's life. Contracts unraveled. Markets hesitated. The industry pulled her apart with polite teeth. She was cleared publicly, praised privately, and slowly isolated professionally. Fame forgives nothing fully. Malik disappeared from her world for good this time. Her mother passed quietly during an early sunrise she was too far away to witness. The village buried her beneath the same sky that had once baptized Amani with rain. When she returned home at last, fame did not follow her down the red road. Only dust did. She stood at the grave barefoot. No cameras. No music. No applause. Only grief. And in that silence, for the first time in years, the dancer felt human again. The dust of the village was heavier than the lights of the world had ever been. When Amani returned after her mother's burial, no one announced her arrival. There were no journalists. No curious children following her steps. No gossip-driven neighbors gathering behind doors. The fame that had once chased her like a loud animal now vanished as if it had never existed. She walked through familiar paths that felt strangely borrowed, her feet remembering distances her heart had forgotten. The mango tree still leaned the same way. The river still whispered the same tired song. But the woman walking the land was no longer the girl who had once danced for the sky. She moved into her mother's empty house and shut the door on the world. Days passed without sound. She cooked only when hunger forced her hand. She slept in pieces the way she used to in the city, but now the silence pressed harder than the noise ever had. At night she spoke to her mother in whispers she pretended the wind could carry. During the day she avoided the village center, avoided questions, avoided pity. The world believed she had chosen to disappear. And in a way she had. Babu Kofi visited once a week. Sometimes with food. Sometimes with medicine. Always with concern. He never spoke of industry, contracts, or screens. He spoke of rain patterns, of broken radios, of stories his grandmother told by firelight when the world still felt wide and kind. He treated her like a woman resting between storms, not a fallen star. One evening, as the village sky bruised purple with coming rain, Babu sat beside her on the floor and told her the last truth he had hidden. The powerful man who had destroyed his career, who had built the corruption that later armed Zuri, was gone now. Dead from a silent sickness in a foreign hospital. His empire was collapsing quietly. But revenge, Babu said, had not brought him peace. Only time had softened the anger enough for him to breathe again. Revenge is a fire that only pretends to warm, he said. When it dies, the cold is more brutal. Amani said nothing. That night, rain returned for the first time since her mother's burial. It began the same way it had years ago, sudden, violent, unstoppable. Roofs rattled. Dust surrendered into mud. Children who had not seen rain for months screamed with surprise and joy. And without thinking, without planning, without fear of being seen, Amani stepped outside barefoot. The first drops touched her skin and something ancient woke again. Her body moved before her mind agreed. She danced. Not for fame. Not for justice. Not for memory. She danced because grief needed a language her mouth could not speak. The village gathered quietly this time. No one mocked. No one filmed. Even the sky seemed to watch with gentleness. The rain did not try to drown her the way it once had. It fell with rhythm, as if it had learned her timing. For the first time since everything had burned, Amani felt alive without being hunted by attention. By morning, the decision had already been made within her, even if her mouth had not yet shaped it into words. She would never return to the industry the way it existed before. Days later, she boarded a bus without announcement and traveled inland to a forgotten town where the roads did not carry stories outward. There she rented a small building and began teaching dance to children who had never imagined their bodies could be instruments of power. Orphans, street girls, quiet boys who were told movement made them weak. She did not tell them who she had been. She only showed them who they could become. The world moved on without her. New stars rose. Old scandals faded. Algorithms found new storms to worship. Malik searched for her once. He never found her. Zuri was sentenced quietly behind media walls that no longer cared to watch her fall. Babu Kofi grew weaker with each passing season. His hands shook as he adjusted radios. His breath shortened when he laughed. And one morning, as rain whispered against rusted metal again, he did not wake. The village buried him near the mango tree where the taxi once slept. At his grave, Amani did not cry loudly. She held his old phone in her hand and felt the weight of the first miracle it had ever captured. The miracle that had lifted her and broken her and rebuilt her again in stranger shape. Years passed. The children she taught grew into performers, teachers, dreamers. Some failed. Some flew. They called her Ma Amani. Not star. Not legend. Just mother of movement. And then one afternoon, long after the world had forgotten the scandal and the storm dancer and the barefoot miracle, a documentary crew arrived unannounced at her studio. They had traced stories through fragments, old footage, rumor, and one uncredited viral video that never lost its mystery. They found her older, thinner, calmer. Her eyes carried storms that no camera could fully steal. "Why did you disappear?" they asked. She thought about the mother she never hugged goodbye enough. The lover she left bleeding behind regret. The old man who saved her without asking for his name in return. The girl she once was, dancing alone as if no one existed to harm her. "I did not disappear," she said. "I arrived somewhere else." The documentary reached the world quietly. This time, the world did not devour her. It listened. She was invited back to the global stage one final time as an honored guest, not a commodity. No contracts. No ownership. No cage. On the night of her return, rain fell again. Not violently. Not mournfully. Just enough. She walked onto the world's biggest stage barefoot, carrying the humility of dust and the courage of every storm she had survived. The crowd did not scream at first. They held their breath. Then she moved. And somewhere across oceans and grief and forgotten villages, the sky remembered her.